spine. Spine is a big deal in yoga. Well, it's a big deal in being alive. Yogically, we think of it as our center, right? This place where I, both the personal and the universal, seem to reside way in this deep center of spine. We have the chakras, all this individual stuff manifesting out, qualities and traits, and at the very, very center, inside of the central nervous system, very, very deep in the etheric, in the region of space, lives the Sushumna Nadi. And the Sushumna Nadi, the opening of the Sushumna Nadi, is one of the big goals in yoga practice. The opening of Sushumna is part of awakening. It's part of energizing the body. It gives us actual, tangible, embodied, fully recognized ability to perceive directly our core, the empty radiance of the Sushumna Nadi, the self that is beyond the individual self, right? All right, so do we want freedom in the spine? We really do. How do we obtain freedom in our spines? Well, yoga tells us we do a lot of stuff. We go inhale, we go exhale, we go turn, we go we go jump, we go chaturanga, boo-boo, big back bends. We do all this stuff. Hopefully, many of us, in order to free our vital energy, to balance our body-mind so that we can perceive much more deeply. But here's what's been happening. In my experience, this is my opinion, here's what's been happening over the last, many, many years of yoga in the West. We've accepted a paradigm of our bodies, which is, I don't like to use so much the term masculine and feminine, but the male energy of go, 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 get it done, of which I have a lot, right? We all have these. Male energy, go, 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 focus, get it done. And then the feminine aspect of the presence, the being, the noticing of life, the entering into the field of prakriti, the field of nature with a quality of acceptance, tenderness, and containing. And now this, to me, is the gift of what's coming out in the yoga world right now, this much more tender, acceptant, like, okay, I'm not perfect. Does that mean I can't witness life as it is? Seriously? Could that be so? Well, I don't think it makes sense. I think that it's possible for all of us, no matter how imperfect, faulted, emotional, intellectual, whatever it is we are, we can notice this. Of course, if the mind's too busy doing something else, we won't notice it, so you have to pay attention. But getting back to the yoga and the asana of it, that we've done a lot to move our spines. Well, there's a flaw in our thinking. Again, it's always just my opinion. The flaw in our thinking is that these bones need to somehow be stacked one upon the other in just the right manner so that we can wake up. When I think there's just a little excessively rigid vision on that, and that is the thinking that this thing is doing it on its own. What about the fact that every cell is in relationship with everything else? What about the fact that we are profoundly relational beings, that our systems are all working together, that there's an inner weave of soft tissue, the fascial weave of the body that organizes and communicates and all of this stuff that we know. And then we go out and we say, well, you better line up your vertebrae, line up those bones. Well, bones are part of a strut and elasticity structure in the body that is resilient. If we line up bones and harden, we harden the resilience that keeps it all luscious and, dare I say, on the feminine and the accepting and the deep tenderness side of things, the nature side. So as we women have become more and more predominant, obviously, in the yoga world, I believe that just because we maybe have a little more of the mix of the feminine, that we're now bringing that, our understanding of that and our acceptance of self, right? We have to accept it in order to offer it. So let's bring it into the spine, guys. This is a beautiful structure, a beautiful bony structure, at the bottom of which we have the pelvic bones, one on either side, and we have the sacrum, of course, at the back, which is spine, right? So this part of your spine forms the back of what you consider to be a basin of the pelvis, but it is not pelvis, it is spine, right? So this, each leg and its pelvic half goes together to articulate into the body and up and into the spine. Yes, each leg individually, they articulate, they move, and within this core we have tremendous support for very, very sporadic movement. Bone disc, yes. Bone disc, yes. But what if, because it feels to be true, what if your spine is actually suspended from above? And instead of this sacrum being lodged down there by gravity and weight into the big ears of the pelvis and becoming something part of this whole thing, if that were the case, how would we have the space that we know we want? We're not going to get it from lifting up and using our adamants and so forth. What we want to find is the space itself. And what we want to notice is that this vertebral column is supported in relationship to everything that is around it. So rather than thinking, stack the bones, lift up, what we start to look at is, well, where does that support spread? What if I create space in the vertebral column region and then space in the core? So not just the vertebral column, but the region around it. So this is a tensegritis structure. I got this from the Tom Myers School, from the anatomy trains, and it's an indication of the way that your vertebral column is suspended by its supports all around. Now notice in this tensegritis suspension system, there are strong struts, bones, and there are elastic tissues, muscle, connective tissue, fascia, all of that stuff. And the way that they are arranged, they are supporting one another and also keeping the space inside. So tensegritis structures move in extremely resilient ways, and there's a lot of evidence to say, beginning to say, that all of life, every little molecule of us is actually based on a tensegritus structure. So these are the bones. These are the spinal vertebrae. These are the spinal vertebrae in this structure. They never ever touch. By the way, bones don't touch. Bones come into joints and then there's space, right? The synovial fluid. They don't touch. We don't want them to touch. If they touch, they wear out joints, right? So in the leg and the hip and all of that, it's the same kind of tensegritus weave that keeps the spaces in our body. So back to the spine. If we think in terms of moving this structure in the ways that many of us do have, like, okay, I'm doing a lateral bend in my spine, and I initiate from my vertebral column, I'm kind of in a little bit of tension trouble there. If, however, I can initiate from the supportive tissues around the spine, I can create these movements that are much more sporadic, right? And resilient, right? This is what we want in our bodies. And if you want to wake up the spine, you gotta wake up the cells. We have to bring in this cellular liveliness that we've all been looking for. We're all looking for it. And there are many, many techniques for going in and honing in on all of this stuff. And it applies directly to our yoga practice. The philosophy, the anatomy, the breathing, the whole thing is interwoven and exists right inside of us. So, long story short, find out, figure out how to move from your core with a much more resilient, expanding, condensing, and yielding movement, and see what happens. Let's explore this together. Yeah, I teach a lot of this. Most of the embodiment that I've learned comes from my primary teacher, Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, and the ability to apply it in yoga and the recognition that, wow, anatomy is philosophy. It's all in there. We're living it. So soften, notice. Let's do it together. I invite you to go to my website. There are classes, there are trainings. I invite you to go to YouTube, which has a lot of an ever-growing amount of free videos that I'm so happy to be offering. So thank you for listening, and contact me. I want to share this. Thank you.